And our next speaker is Adeola Sole from Email Expert. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here,
All
but
right. Hello.
hi, it won't let me, the hosts, you guys have to let my video, enable my video. You guys look very comfortable on that sofa, I must say.
Actually, we're not. We stretch between between the presentations. It's really uncomfortable.
Oh, okay. So the screen is far away, so you're having to squint.
But you are going to talk about the luxury e-commerce, right? So it's
Well, you guys actually know. So I'm actually going to be talking about, I was supposed to present this, I think, back in December or November
yeah.
last year. So I'm just going to present what I was supposed to do last time, and it's talking about optimizations, and it's from my time when I was working at Holistic Email Marketing, which is a really fantastic CRM email marketing consultancy agency. And I think there are some really great learnings. What they do at that particular agency at Holistic is really, really great. And I wanted to be able to share some of those insights in terms of optimizations then, and I didn't get the chance to. So I'm just going to pay homage and do it some justice and do it now. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, and hopefully giving some people some insights, and I guess also showing some of the great work that was done at my time there. So yes.
Can you try to turn on your camera and share the screen? It should be available now.
Okay. No, but I will, unless I leave and come back.
No, please don't go.
um, let me see. No, unfortunately, no. I've tried a few times.
1 second.
I'm happy to just share my screen without my
If you can.
Yeah, can do that.
All right.
Let's see.
We see. Yeah. Works. Okay, good luck.
Thank you. Right. So you're able to see the full screen, correct? But just not me. Okay. I shouldn't have done my hair. Okay. So might as well turn off my light. So I'm Adeola. I'm so sorry you guys can't see me. But I'm a CRM consultant, and I'm going to be taking you through optimization with a difference. So looking at going beyond the email. And is this going to work? So just a quick overview. Actually, is this in the way? Let's get this here. Is it clear for everybody? I just want to make sure. Sorry? It's all good?
It's all good.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely good.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Right. So you've had some time to read that. So as the lovely hosts said before, I'm VP at Email Expert of Client Success, still trying to figure out what this big title, what I actually do. It encompasses so many different things. So I'm very much usually the host of a conference and less presenting a conference or a webinar. So this is really fun to do because I don't get to do it that often. But I'm also an email consultant by trade. So that's what I do as my day to day. As I mentioned before, I was working with Holistic Email Marketing. I have my own little small, I'm a consultant. It's called Strategy CRM. And I more or less help brands with their email and CRM campaigns and their audits. I'm currently working with some really nice brands at the moment, one being Hastings, and just helping them plan out their email strategies, which is a lot of fun. No, like the mouse doesn't want to work. So just as an overview, some of the companies I've worked with in my past life, I worked at Mr. Porter and Marks and Spencer's, and it was very much a lot of the same. So in essence, my whole career has spanned from being on client side as well as agency side. And in this time, I've been able to work with some really cool and exciting companies and essentially help them with their CRM and looking at different ways of optimizations. But I must say, working on the agency side, I think is where you get a lot of value because you're able to test in different ways and use a lot of different strategies where when you're working on the actual brand or client side, because there are so many different dependencies and time pressures, you don't necessarily have the room to, you know, explore and test the way that you want to test. So hopefully this little presentation today will take you through some of the different tests that have been done. And just obviously to point out that when I was supposed to give this, it was, you know, last year. So the results are from Holistic Email Marketing. You should check them out because they are such a great consultancy and also have some fantastic brands and do some amazing things. So I just want to share some of the insights from there in regards to how brands are using optimizations in different ways. So essentially, what does optimization mean? I think we use this term a lot and we fling it around everywhere. But I think, you know, when we look at the heart of optimization, the actual definition is by Webster Dictionary. It's an act or a process or methodology of making something such as a design, as fully perfect and functional or as effective as possible. Which is a mouthful. Whereas when you look at Cambridge Dictionary, they simply say it's the act of making something as good as possible. And I think that that's a really nice way of summing optimizations in essence. It's looking at how we can make something better. We're always looking at incrementally increasing what we're doing, and we can only do that through the act of optimization. So when we think of this as marketers, when we usually optimize, what we tend to do is focus on these key things. So we look at the email template. You know, should the CTA be here? Should we have a long template? How many different modules are we having? Do we want to have a short one versus a long one? You know, we've all been there. We look at different ways in which we can expand or condense a template. Chris went through in his presentation looking at subject line and how you can incorporate ChatGPT to come up with some really fantastic different types of subject lines. Body copy. So again, we're looking at the length and the size of the copy and also the different types of images. And I'm sure you guys have heard, you know, images where there's a person or a subject looking at a particular product has a better conversion rate than just a standalone product on its own. So, you know, people will do those types of tests where they're having a product versus a model. Is a valuable test, and will that increase conversions? Will that increase revenue? Again, with CTA, should we have a long CTA? Is shop now better than discover more? You know, so we've all been there with the different types of tests and looking at how we can evolve things within the emails, right? But I feel like there's a little bit more to how we can go about that. And I do believe that at times we can get lost in these things. We get lost in the small details. I think sometimes looking just purely at subject line or the placement of a CTA kind of prevents you from looking at the bigger picture. And it also kind of limits the way in which you look at optimizations, because we're looking at it from a very finite view, and it's no one's fault. I feel like with marketing or as marketers, there is no rule book. We're not taught what to do. We literally have to test and learn as we go along, even within our jobs, right? So there is no one size fits all. There is no true North Star of how to do these things. But what I will say, especially from having the experience of being more agency and consultancy based, is that we can take optimizations a lot more further. And I also do believe that even with optimizations and taking them further, they don't actually have to be as grand as someone would think that they have to be. And so, let's just go into that just a little bit more. So if we take the customer journey, to be fair, is a mess. And I would say that this image within itself just shows you the different stages that a customer goes through, right? And all the different factors, all of the different touch points that a customer comes across or a prospect. And it's a minefield or a minefield. If you, as a customer, as a marketer, use this as an opportunity to have an intervention into all the different pain points, you'll find that you'll have different elements in which you can optimize. So if we look at the awareness stage, which I'm going to go into just a little bit more, in terms of acquisition, there are so many different customer touch points there that don't necessarily sit within your framework of email, but actually at the end of the day, it does have a lasting result on your overall revenue and your targets for the year. So it makes sense as email marketers or CRMers or digital marketers, whatever we want to call ourselves, to have a valid or an interest in all of these different customer touch points, because there are opportunities there that are open to be optimized. So let's just take a quick look at acquisition. For me, I feel like acquisition is like having a net and trying to catch as many butterflies as possible. If you think about the way in which your PPC ads work, they're funneling hundreds of people to your website, hundreds, right? And if you was to look at that essentially from the perspective of butterflies, imagine the amount that would be flying onto your website. And at any given moment, as email marketers, we're supposed to convert as many of those people as possible to give us their email address. And I wonder, even at the point of, let's say, having a data capture form, what are we doing to ensure that those ads, right, are working as hard as they need to be to enable us to do the job that we need to do? So even starting at those points, looking at the PPC ads, looking at the messaging, and ensuring that the content is right, because it's just as important as the message that we actually send in an email. Have you actually gone through the customer journey yourself and experienced what your customers have? And do you see any areas and processes which could be smoother? So essentially, like if someone lands on an ad, are they clear? Are they meeting the customer's expectations? And are they meeting the customer's expectations from when they land on your website? And I feel as email marketers, we need to start having more ownership of areas beyond the email, because a lot of what we do relies heavily on the website itself. So it makes sense to start building business cases and use cases as to why certain areas need to be optimized. So that's just food for thought. So go through your own customer journey now and look at those different pain points, look at those different barriers. Are your PPC ads actually taking people to the right places? And do you have the right tools in place to catch those people? You can see this crazy guy with his net, it's a big job within itself, but let's make sure that we are geared up to work in a way that's efficient. And then also looking at the success metrics. So we have all of these people funneling to the sites. So we know on a weekly basis, I'm sure you guys all have your weekly stand-ups and you can see the volume of traffic that's being brought to the site. But what does that look like in terms of opt-ins and conversions from an email perspective? Are we doing all that we can do to ensure that the work that's being done at the beginning of the customer journey, we're benefiting and leveraging all of that work to ensure that we can make a better impact towards the end of the customer journey? So that's just one thing in terms of food for thought. What I want to do now is just kind of go into some examples of brands that are really optimizing with a difference. And again, as a disclaimer, this is taken from my time working with holistic email marketing. So it's their clients. And I'm just trying to share these insights as much as possible so you can get your brains ticking in terms of how you can actually use different tactics and use different ways of optimizing what you're currently doing. So one of the clients there that we worked on was called Canadips. And I don't know if anyone has heard of Canadips, but they're just a natural CDB pouch. They, just to give you some overall context, Canadips went above and beyond when trying to find a formulation that would deliver the CBD element as carefully and as effectively, all while preserving a long-lasting flavor. I've never used anything like this. I do not dabble in this stuff, but I'm sure anyone that does and has tried something like this will probably kind of champion the reasons as to why having a really innovative process of having a long-lasting flavor, but also ensuring that, you know, what you're trying to get from the CBD element is as potent as possible. You know, the engineering behind it, the way in which they create their products is incredibly innovative. They use bioscience and pharmaceutical companies to find the right types of mesh, for instance, to ensure a really great flow. It's like I'm almost selling this product to you guys, but I'm not. I'm just trying to explain there's a lot of work that goes into their product, a lot of research that goes into the product, a lot of trial and error that goes into their product to ensure that the customer has the greatest experience, right? So there's so much effort that gets put into optimizing the product overall. They optimize their product category ranges. They optimize the different flavors. They optimize the materials and making sure that it's safe, not just from the CDB potent element, but also from the materials that your body will naturally be digesting and absorbing. There's a lot of work that goes into that. So why don't we extend this type of innovation to our marketing, right? So when we look at optimization, essentially it is a form of experimentation. It's not just you pick something, you know, on a whim, you do it once, and then you close the book on it. You want to build a use case. You actually want to become a scientist, let's say, and start your own form of experimentations. So one thing that Holistic did with them was to create a test based on motivations, which I think is really fascinating. And I do believe that there are some articles on their website in regards to the testing methodologies, how they conduct their tests, and the various different types of tests. I think at Holistic, they're really big with testing. It's a passion. So I would definitely encourage you to check it out. So here, one of the main things was to look at testing motivations. And when I say motivations, it's essentially looking at the customer psyche. So it goes beyond just copy. We're looking at the psychology of a customer, and we're trying to understand what will help or motivate a customer who has potentially abandoned from browsing. What will encourage them to actually go back and convert. So this was a really lovely test that was an A/B split test. And what we found is that we looked at, actually, if you go back, we looked at two different things. So we looked at overt messaging versus covert messaging. So overt is essentially in your face. Anything that you say is quite literally, we're spelling it out for you. We're being as direct as possible. We're not mincing our words, you know exactly what we're trying to say. That's essentially something that is overt. It's very obvious. We're making a very clear point. Whereas covert is a little more subtle, it's very discreet. So the message is still getting put across, but it's been done in a very subtle way, which you won't necessarily feel like you're being sold to, because we're being incredibly indirect. So those were the two motivations that we were testing. And I guess just one thing to highlight here is that with this particular brand, their audience is predominantly men. So when the brand were looking at different ways to motivate their buyers. They were actually trying to find the sweet spot to talk to their male dominated customer base. So when we look at test day, it was overt, the overt test. And as you can see here, it's essentially pointing out, where they actively acknowledge that I've been browsing. And again, I've not tried the product. Maybe I should, but the copy essentially just actively acknowledges that they've been browsing. So we're just making it very clear. We're being Big Brother. We've seen you looking at our products, and again, we're trying to give you reasons to come back. And what's really nice here is that they give you the option to look at different testimonials. So hopefully you can see my mouse there. So you can check out what other men had to say about their product, just to kind of reinforce and use a form of social proofing within this test to help encourage the customer to go and purchase. Whereas covert kind of takes a different approach. It talks more about the product itself. They talk more about the company and the evolution of the product, rather than talking about the fact that you've been looking at this product directly on their website. They use a different angle here, more of an educational / inspirational piece, rather than focusing predominantly on the action that you took on their website. So those are the two different things that they wanted to test. And it's such a shame that I know we can't really all jump out and speak, but I was going to ask you, which one did you feel was, actually you can put it in the chat, but I probably won't see, but which one of these tests do you think had the greatest success? I see lots of things pinging, but I don't think I can check. But essentially it was overt. And it's quite interesting because I wasn't actually surprised with this test, but it was a really nice thing for the brand to actually understand and see how their customers like to be spoken to. And I think it stands in terms of how men like to be spoken to, is they just like to hear it as it is. Don't put any fancy fluffy stuff. I don't want to know your backstory. I just want you to be direct and as obvious with me as possible. And I think even when I'm, I think even in dating scenes, men always say, I'm not a right mind reader. Just tell me what the heck it is you want. Just tell me. So I think it's safe to say that with this particular brand, they know and can confidently move forward knowing that, okay, we've looked at different motivations and it's clear our customers just like us to be straight down the line and very direct with them, which is fantastic. Because what this means is that they can start using this particular type of motivation, or this particular type of tone across all of their different channels, because they know it works. So they can use it within their welcome program. They can use it within their win back program. They can also use it in their PPC ads, right? So when I was talking about acquisition and looking at optimizations, these are the different things now, these little insights and learnings that can be applied across the board, even down to social media posts. So that's it. When we're talking about optimizations, we're looking at ways in which we can make incremental changes that will have a really big impact later on down the line. And then here's something really nice. There's a lot going on here, but essentially, and again, I do know that within Holistic, they talk a lot about statistical significance and testing. So again, please do check them out, because there are some fantastic things there. But here we can see, when you're testing, if we were just to look at opens, which we typically do as marketeers, when we conduct A/B tests, we only look at the opens, click through, and probably and revenue. When we're looking at these different types of things, we tend to judge mainly on the open rate, and then go later on down the funnel to look at conversions and potentially revenue. So here you can see that the opens is essentially the same. There's not that much of a difference. But when you look at conversion rate, you can see that that's where you see the biggest uplift. That's where the difference is made. So although the opens were more or less like for like, let's say, and essentially so were the clicks, this definitely helps you understand where the biggest room of growth is. So, it's always important to make sure that you're not just looking at the email engagement rates, you're looking at the web metrics as well, because that's going to help you determine where you need to start rolling out some of your winning success metrics across your different campaigns. And again, when it comes to testing, and we all know this, don't just test 1 or 2 times, test over a period of time. I wouldn't even say 4 tests is enough. I would say you run your tests for at least a month, especially when it's an automation that goes out daily. Give it room to breathe. Give it the chance and the opportunity to collect as much data and insights as possible. Please don't just do up to 3 or 4 tests and call it a day, because you're not going to get as much learnings as you think you will. I think some of the mistakes that we tend to make as marketers is we use the 4th test as a rule of thumb for everything, assuming that all customers will now behave as you expect them to behave from the 4th test, which is why it's better to run them over a long period of time so that you get a great mix of people, you get a great expanse of time in terms of when you started the test from when you've ended it, to then have a really nice general consensus that, okay, based on this test, based on the amount of time that we've ran this for, we can confidently say that our customers generally behave as X and not as Y. So one final example, again taken from my time at Holistic, was Cheeky Wipes. I still have a bit of time, great. So they're just an eco-friendly reusable wipes, and they went to the business, or they went to Holistic to ask for an audit and a review. So they just kind of wanted to have an MOT essentially on their marketing, their email marketing, the ways in which they were working, their campaigns, their metrics, just everything. They just needed an MOT, just like you take your car in for an MOT. They wanted that with their emails. And usually and I think most consultants do this, they will give their clients an audit. So you're able to kind of review, have a look at what's going on from a copy perspective, from a segmentation and strategy perspective, from an email sending frequency perspective, from deliverability. All things are covered. Most CRM marketing consultants will do this for their customers. And from there, you will be able to pick up recommendations. And those recommendations will usually be focused on areas for optimization. And this is what happened with Cheeky Wipes. So a lot of the recommendations were focused around their frequency of send, looking at the actual types of copywriting. So looking at including persuasive text, again, leaning into your type of customer and learning who they are. And that within itself is a great test to have. So looking at the emotions behind your copy, and whether or not certain emotions can trigger actually a conversion. Just like when we're looking at sentimental periods such as Mother's Day, there's certain emotive language that's used within the copy to encourage you to spend, right? It's never just a straightforward blank, buy this for your mum. They're using very persuasive and emotive language. Treat the special woman in your life. Find the perfect gift for, for the woman who loves you the most. There's always that playing on those emotions. And I think that's another great thing in terms of optimization. And then deliverability, as we all know, and Chris and Yanatori also pointed to this in their presentations earlier. Deliverability is a big thing, and there are different ways in which you can manage your deliverability as well as optimizing it. So one of the main recommendations from Holistic was to actually look at moving over their IP. So they were on a shared IP. And the recommendation was, if they were to move over to something a lot more dedicated, not only will their inbox placement increase, but they should see an uplift in their revenue, because obviously more people are receiving their emails. So I will say, anyone that didn't get to catch Yanatori's webinar, and Chris's as well, please definitely try and loop back and get those recordings, because inbox placement is incredibly important. Not just to say that you've landed in Gmail 100%, but the more people that actually have eyes on your emails, the more you increase your chances to, increase your revenue. And that's what Cheeky Wipe saw. Because of that, they saw a 40% uplift in sales simply by improving their deliverability, which is fantastic. So again, when we speak about optimization, it encompasses so many things that naturally we actually are doing it, but we just don't frame it in the way of being optimization. We usually see it as a job well done. This is what we're supposed to do because we're marketers. But actually use these different customer touch points, use those parts of the customer journey to find ways to strategically optimize your emails, but not just your emails, the website, the cart, oh gosh, can't get my words out, the checkout process, as well as the acquisition part, right? So even though they sit with different departments, I think this is the perfect way to start blending with your different, with those different stakeholders and building business cases and use cases to see how your goals can actually impact theirs and help them see an uplift in their area, as well as us or you seeing an uplift in your area. So wrapping up, because I know Jean is coming on soon, final thoughts essentially is don't be afraid to test and fail. We should always be conducting tests with a test to learn mentality, and testing for failure and testing for failure as well, because not all tests are going to be conclusive. You actually learn a lot when you test to fail, because it gives you the insights as to what isn't working. And it also gives you another framework to build a new test case on that. So, I was on a webinar last year, and someone really cleverly said, you test to either replace or you test to win. When you test to replace, you're looking for a very flat result. Nothing needs to essentially be the winner. You just want to make sure that you're able to test to have a conclusive answer so that you can replace something without there being a detrimental impact to the customer journey or to your revenue, conversions, etc. And when you're testing to win, that's when you're actually testing to optimize. So you're trying to find the actual sweet spot where you're saying, okay, this version is the winner. We're going to continue to optimize this because we can see that we're getting the greatest amount of click-throughs, or we're getting the greatest amount of revenue or downloads or etc. So there is no bad way of testing. Everything has its learnings. And then looking at automations. So I would definitely say when you're looking to start at optimizing some of your campaigns, I think automations are the best place to start. Automations generate 75% of overall email revenue, which is fantastic. And even when I was at a conference at the beginning of this year, I believe it was with Movable Ink and Pandora were presenting, and they actually said that their automations only accounted for 7% of their total email program, and yet it was producing around 70% of their revenue. So what they've started to do now is front load a lot more automations, because they're realizing that focusing too much on BAUs, it's almost like they're putting a lot of hard work and effort into the business as usual campaigns, when actually the automations are doing a considerable amount of the heavy lifting. And here, what we see on my next slide is that OmniSend can back that up. What you see is that the automations typically have one of the biggest conversion rates in comparison to your normal BAU campaigns. So when you're looking at where do I start, I would say pick one of these, pick one of your automations here and find different ways, and especially in regards to the customer journey, where you can start overlaying different types of tests to see how you can start moving that needle for incremental growth. So my final point here is the customer journey provides a wealth of opportunities to optimize. So don't just look at the subject line, the body copy, look at the whole damn journey and see where those pain points are, and start coming up with some hypotheses and seeing where you can test. Collaborate. I know this is such a hard thing, right? But collaborate with the digital team. Their goals are essentially yours. So, start using these as great ways to build use cases. sweet talk them if you have to. Your interests are their interests. If you make money from the email program, they'll definitely make money from their digital program. So it's definitely a win-win. Test to fail and learn, as I said before. Both ways will give you insights. Implement a hypothesis when testing. So instead of just doing a blanket, I'm going to test emojis versus no emojis, start adding a hypothesis. And scientists do this when they're trying to find a solution to something. They start with a hypothesis, and that actually guides the entire process of experimentations, because it helps them tweak where they need to in order to stay true to their hypothesis. So if they feel as though if I add magnesium to hydrochloric acid, it will strengthen the bone density in premature babies, when they're conducting those tests, they're able to manipulate certain areas within that experiment to either, to help them stay true to the overall hypothesis in general. Whether it proves it or disproves it is irrelevant, as long as they're having an overarching hypothesis to guide that test. And then focus on all areas that will provide the greatest uplift and value. And as I said, it's your automations. And I genuinely believe that that's a fantastic place to start, because the conversions are so fantastic. It also gives you enough scope to have it running for a longer time, so that you're able to gain as much insights as you need to, rather than your BAU campaigns where it's almost like a one and done. And that's it. That's me done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we hear Argood, who will ask the first question, and I can do it.
Tanel took the long straw, yes. Yeah. Maybe you can try to turn on your camera also in between, but Tanel, please go on.
Okay, about the testing.
Let me try.
You are probably seeing huge amount of, as you are the consultant, and and also we are hearing that everybody talking A, B, C, D, E, how many testing, and we are also telling to our clients that test that. But if you are seeing the clients with you are working, are they actually testing, or this is more that it's hype? Yeah, you have to test, and they're saying that yeah, we have to test, but actually, what is happening actually?
So no, it's a good question. So it's hard. I think as a consultant, we do definitely sit on better ground, because we have more time to say to our clients, implement a test. But those marketers that are on the ground, they have so many different influences and so many different constraints. So I don't think it's fair. It's very difficult for them to implement the tests that they would like to test, because they have so many different moving parts, right? If the business is low on revenue for 1 week, they automatically go to the email team and expect them to blast out a campaign. So it's very hard for them to find the time to even carve out the resources to do meaningful and to conduct meaningful tests, which is why I say looking at your automations, a program that already exists is the perfect place to start, because it's up and running for you. All you now need to do is focus on the different elements in which you would like to test. And that hopefully also reduces the amount of resource, time, and risk that a marketer would naturally face in their day-to-day. So it's hard. It's hard to do on a day-to-day basis. But we have been, and I definitely, advise clients and even friends that are in the industry to first focus on those automations, because you're able to gain incremental insights from something that is already running. So it takes a lot less pressure off of you, and then it gives you more of a framework, and also builds a really great business case and case study for you to take to C-suite, to say, okay, look, these are the things that we want to start doing. We've run it on one automation. We need room or potentially extra resource to be able to implement them across the rest, because this is the amount of revenue we've been able to drive. So Yes, you know, it's hard. I sympathize with marketers because it's not easy. I think, you know, it's not easy. I know everyone on this call wants to bloody test, you know, but how many hours are in a day, right?
Yeah, we see with our small to medium-sized clients that it's good that they send targeted emails. When you talk about testing, then it's like next level to them already. I had a friend who worked at Amazon in Germany. They had 200 people in email marketing department. They tested everything every day, 24/7. But it's nothing to do with what we do with our clients every day. But
Yeah.
yeah, we have seen that they usually start testing, and after, as you said, 3 or 4 campaigns, okay, that subject line works a little bit better, and then they carry on usually. That it does not like lead to next steps after that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's it. I think we are so used to doing 4 and then, you know, running out of steam and just saying, okay, this is gospel, this is the truth, let's park it. You know, and I saw someone said that if you have a small list, you know, how do you do that? How do you um essentially, let me find that question, sorry. So
Yeah,
they
have you
said
had
if you have a,
experience testing with small audiences?
yes, where should the focus be if the numbers limit the ability to reach that statistical significance? And the thing is, actually, even with your small list, you're still actually going to see significance. What you need to just ensure is you're testing on more than 100 at least. So if it's very small, I would essentially say don't necessarily do it because there's not enough scope. But if you at least have at minimum at least 500 people minimum that you're able to kind of have a very small sample size, and you already know that the engagement is relatively average, then again you can actually build a case from those clients, because to be fair, typically they will be the majority. So the learnings that you're going to gain from that test that you do, no matter how small it is, will essentially be from the majority. So you can kind of slowly assume that the winning outcome can be applied and it will be effective across the board. And then obviously, as your audience grows, as your business grows, you can then repurpose that test, but you know, optimize it a little bit and test different elements, because what may have worked for the 500 may not necessarily work for the 1000 or the 2000, right? So as you grow, the test grows with you. I hope that answers your question.
Great. Well, thank you. From your recommendations, we see there is like a pattern from what we started in the morning, what the presenters talked about regarding deliverability and optimization and segmentation, and seeing what you have done in practice are basically the same things, and that works. This is great to see.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adeola.
Thank you, guys.